we are going to the Custom House. It's a museum here in Monterey that, truthfully, we know nothing about. But we are going to take you with us to find out. Custom House, California's first historic landmark, built in 1827. Let's see what this place is all about, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, what is this?
So this is California's first ever landmark. Well, it's the first landmark. And it's the oldest government building in California. So it was built by Mexico in 1827 to collect tax on cargo. So all of these tables would represent the cargo that was coming through this building in 1827. This would be England, Scandinavia. So a lot of kitchenware and glass, as well as porcelain, made to look Chinese, but it's actually English. And also behind you would be Asian goods. So we have some fabrics, silks, also some footwear, and we have a brick. This is actually a consumable item. Do you want to guess as to what it is?
Chocolate.
Close. Almost like hot chocolate. It is actually made out of tea. So
Wow.
this is a compressed brick of tea. These were used a lot in China as actually their own form of currency. So if you didn't have Chinese currency on you, you could trade actually using tea bricks.
Wow.
So you could buy a section of this tea brick, but they would be sold here. This was a better way to ship it as opposed to loose leaf and barrels where it would dry out and actually lose quality. This is nice and compressed and it's actually moist. So on the inside it's nice and moist. And you'd almost have a cheese grater and you'd grate off a little bit into your kettle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, those are actually pit saws. So you see one up there has handles on both ends. They all should have the handles. Some of them don't if you wanted to mount them.
Okay.
But they were pit saws. They're called pit saws because they would dig pits and actually lay the wood on top of the pit. So when you saw it down, it wouldn't just hit the ground. It would go down into the pit. So they would be using those. One guy would usually be at the top and another guy would be at the bottom helping you out. So it's manpower.
That's
Wow.
cool.
A lot of this items over here would be all from Boston, which are a lot of cast iron materials. We weren't able to smelt our own metals over here in Monterey. We were still basically like super, nuts and bolts. We were super basic at this point. So we didn't even have glass. The floors we're standing on were actually added in the 1930s. So they're made out of, I believe it is redwood, but they were added in the 1930s. Before that, they would have just been compact earth, so no wood at all. Most houses around here wouldn't have even had windows. They wouldn't have been able to actually smelt the sand, so most people would have had wooden slat windows. Back here is the customs official's office. So this is where the guy himself who would have been taxing your goods and making sure you were bringing in what you said you brought in would be doing all his work. All the items in that room are originals. So that is an original California grizzly bear trap, a now extinct subspecies of grizzly bear. But we still have the trap. So I think that's around 1870s, so late 1800s. And we also have Oliver's portrait back there, which is I believe a replication, so it's not the original. All these items right here would have been coming from South America. So we have coffee, oats, sugar, salt, all that items. A little bit less of a journey if you're coming from South America, but if you're coming from Boston, you would have to go all the way around the not the Panama Canal, all the way around the Horn. So that would be 6 months if you got really lucky, but normally around 8 to 9 months, even if maybe 12 months if you hit bad weather. So all these people would be traveling a really, really long distance to get around, and when they got here, they would be charged 90 to 100% tax on their goods.
Whoa.
We were a territory of Mexico, not a state of Mexico. So they didn't provide us with any monetary help. They also didn't provide us with any military, so we had to do it all on our own. All that tax money would go directly back into Monterey and into Alta California, because this was the capital of Alta California. All the money was coming in through here. All of the trading was coming in through here. We were Upper California as opposed to Baja. Baja still exists today. It's still part of Mexico. Alta California has been absorbed into the Union, so we are now California. But they would, like I said, sell all their goods, 90 and 100% tax sometimes, and then load right back up with cowhides.
Dang, look at that.
I believe I've heard numbers of up to 20 to 30,000 cowhides could fit on their boats. To give you an example of how big the hull of a ship would be, this room is built to be around the same size as a ship's hull. So those cargo boats that were coming through with all their merchandise would be fitting about as much as you could pack into this room.
Wow.
Ceiling to, floor to ceiling. all the way up. So all of these hides, they would sell for a pretty hardy price. You can buy it from $1 here and sell them for $10 in Boston. So you can make your money back. All of these ships though, they were not really, you couldn't just go with your dad or your brother, go on a ship with the destiny to make a bunch of money off cowhide. Normally you would actually be sponsored. There were a lot of businesses on the East Coast that needed that leather. The leather was used for factory straps, kind of like in this picture, and then we actually have one of those straps right there. When you notice this, yeah, so these are literally machine belts prior to synthetic rubber and synthetic fabrics, I believe. So these belts, you might notice it's starting to wear. They would actually cut where it wore and punch holes in it so they could continue reusing it. But they would still go through around hundreds of miles every year, is what I've been told. So they would be constantly buying more leather, and we could provide. We had those cows. I mentioned they have them on the East Coast, of course, but it doesn't snow over here. So when you have cows that are wild, they can just graze and graze and graze and go and go and go. So we had at one point 1.5 million head of wild cattle in our hills, and those cows were originally brought by Spain in the 1770s. So they had just been growing and growing since the 1770s. So at that point, we had plenty of product to sell, including candles and even soap, which was the tallow or the fat of the cow. So they would use a lot of it. Nowadays, a lot of people just refer to it as the hide and tallow trade, but we kind of want to bring attention also to the fact that horns were really big. They were using a lot of cow horn in products, like cups, and even decorations like on glasses and things like that. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yep, so that's basically the rundown of the
Thank you. That was awesome.